On average, golfers shoot about 100 shots for a round of 18, with only about 10% of players consistently shooting in the 80s and only about 1% of players consistently shooting in the 70s. What we're going to take a look at in this video is what it takes to break 100 and work your way from average down towards these lower scores. And these are going to be some bottlenecks that maybe you face in your own game and giving you an idea of how you can overcome them. How can you get lower than 100 consistently every time that you play by just picking the low-hanging fruit that has the biggest impact on your score, and usually you can accomplish this goal without even having to change the technical nature of your game. So to start, let's take a look at what it takes to break 100 in the first place. Now, on average, a course is going to have a par of 72. Now, yes, there are courses that are a little bit higher, maybe a par 73 or lower, around 70 or 71. And then there's obviously executive courses or par 3 courses. But what we're talking about in this video is a typical par 72 championship course. Now, what that means is in order to break 100, we have 27 extra shots that we can use and still break 100. 72 plus 27 is 99. So if we break that down, what it really means is that we have 1.5 extra strokes per hole. And if we can finish a round, on average, just 1.5 shots over par on each hole, you'll break 100. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look into where these 1.5 extra shots come from and how you can strategize correctly to break 100 next time you go out and play. So real quick, before we get too far into this, I want to break down your game into 3 different areas. And these are very important skill areas in any golfer's arsenal. And that's your full swing, short game, and putting. Now keep in mind that whether we're talking about how to break 100 or how to break 90 or 80 or 70, these skills don't change. But how good you are at each skill does change. So what we're talking about in this video is particularly how to break 100 and where you need to be within each of these skill levels. So if we start with full swing, what we're really talking about is our ability to hit fairways off the tee and our ability to hit greens on our approach shot. When it comes to short game, we're looking at something known as scrambling. And scrambling is being able to hit the ball onto the green and then make your next shot. And then putting is obviously being able to get the ball into the hole, and we break that down into short putts and lag putts. And so these are the sub-skills that every golfer needs regardless of your score, whether you're breaking 100, 90, 80, 70, or even trying to shoot a 59 like we're seeing a lot of players do these days. We want to be able to break our game down into our full swing, our short game, and our putting, and identify where the bottleneck is that's preventing us from breaking 100 in the first place. Now, let's start with probably the one that most of you watching this who are trying to break 100 are most focused on, and that's the full swing. And I say that because as a decade as a swing coach, you know, that was the thing that most players came to see me for. They want to fix their slice off the tee. They want to hit the ball a little bit farther. They want to hit more greens. And all has to do with this full swing. And full swing is a very important component to scoring low. However, it is not an important component when it comes to breaking 100. In fact, if we look at the numbers, you only need to hit 0 fairways and 0 greens and you can still break 100. That's right. You don't need to hit any fairways off the tee and you don't need to hit any greens on your second shot and you can still break 100. Now, there's a couple catches here. And that main catch is this. While you don't have to hit any fairways and you don't have to hit any greens, what you must avoid is adding penalty strokes into your scorecard. Hitting the ball out of bounds or hitting the ball into a hazard or into an unplayable situation where you need to take a drop is one of the quickest ways to add shots to your score. So by keeping the ball in play and keeping it out of trouble, you will drastically minimize and hopefully eliminate the penalties that you're applying to your scorecard, and that is the first step in breaking 100. Because all this math is based on, again, on average, 1.5 extra shots per hole. Now, depending on the penalty, you could add 1 shot just by hitting the ball out of bounds, and it could have a ripple effect. Hitting the ball out of bounds, you now take a shot to come back to the tee, and then you have to hit another shot. So now you're lying 3 where you could be lying 1. That's a 2-shot swing. If it's in a hazard, it's still going to be a 1-shot penalty, but maybe you're a little bit closer. But the point is, we can't eat away at that 1.5 extra shots per hole just by getting in trouble off the tee. So while you don't have to have the most perfectly technically sound swing, you do need to have a swing consistent enough to keep it out of trouble off the tee. Now, when we go into your short game, scrambling may seem like a really important component. If we don't need to hit any fairways and we don't need to hit any greens, then obviously we might think, well, then I need to be able to get the ball up and down every time I miss the green. This is also not true. What we do need, however, is rather than hitting a green in regulation, and if we back up for a second, to figure out the green in regulation, we take the par of a hole minus 2, and that equals our green in regulation. And what I mean by that is on a par 4 minus 2, if you hit the ball on the green in 2 shots, you achieved your green in regulation. Now, when we start talking about how to break lower scores, how to break 90, break 80, break 70, yes, we do need to start hitting some greens in regulation. But for breaking 100, it's simply not true. We don't need it. What we do need, however, is to be able to hit a green in regulation plus 1 every time. So again, let's go back to our math. To use a par 4 as an example, on a par 4, we minus 2, and that gives us 2. Now add 1, and that gives us 3. So if you can get your ball to finish on the green in 3 shots on a par 4, you've hit a green in regulation plus 1. So we have 2 goals so far. The first one is keep your ball out of trouble when you're playing. Keep it in play, keep it out of the hazards, eliminate those penalties from your scorecard. The second thing is we need to get the ball on the green in 1 more than a green in regulation. Now this is typically short game because after, say, 2 shots on a par 4, you're significantly closer to the green. But we don't have to hit it close enough to be able to scramble, to get up and down, to make that putt. You simply need to get it on the green. So keep it out of trouble, eliminate those penalty shots, and then get the ball on the green in 1 more than your green in regulation. So to come full circle here, to break 100, we don't need to hit fairways, we don't need to hit greens, we don't need to be able to scramble. However, where we do need to be proficient is here in the putting realm. And I'm a big believer that we are all capable of being world-class putters. We don't have to be super tall or athletic or strong or fast. We don't have to hit the ball over 300 yards. A 300-yard drive and a 3-foot putt are worth the same. And so I believe we're all capable of becoming world-class putters. In fact, these other skills, short game and full swing, hinge on your ability to be a good putter. The better a putter you are, automatically your short game gets better, your full swing gets better, and it's all compounding. So it's natural that when we're trying to break through these scoring barriers of going from 100 to 90 to 80 to 70, we might as well develop the most important skill first, which is our putting. Now, all we simply need to do to be able to break this 100 mark is 3 putt half the time, and 2 putt half the time. That's it. If we can 3 putt half the time and 2 putt half the time, while keeping the ball in play off of the tee, keeping it out of trouble, eliminating those penalties from the scorecard, and hitting our green in regulation plus 1 each time, you will finish the round 27 over par. You'll shoot your 99. Now, obviously, this means that if you do hit greens, if you do manage to scramble, if you are able to putt better than these statistics, these are just the bare minimum. If you do anything better, your score is going to continue to come down. But again, as we move into later segments, as you start talking about, say, breaking 90, you need to be able to meet this requirement and then some. And then when we go to talking about breaking 80, this requirement is still there, plus the requirements to break 90, and then some. Same thing when we talk about breaking 70. So this idea that we can build our skills in the way that has the biggest impact on our score, this is the low-hanging fruit. If you're struggling to break 100, but you're hitting, say, 2 balls out of balance per round, don't necessarily work on other things. Work on that. Keep your ball in play, and then work on your putting. If you're finding that you are having trouble getting the ball on a green with a wedge, whether it's a chip from the side of the green that you're struggling to, you're stubbing it, you're hitting them heavy, or you're thinning them over the green, then that's the area that you need to work on. When you have a wedge in your hands and you're going for that green in regulation +1, you need to be able to convert. Now, obviously, you could thin the ball over the green twice in one putt and the numbers still work out, but that skill isn't going to translate, if that makes sense. We still need to establish the skill. It's not just about the number. It's about the process and the skills that led to the number, because there's wiggle room built into these numbers. But at the end of the day, we need to keep the ball out of trouble. We need to keep it in play, keep it out of the hazards. Don't take any drops. We need to be able to just progress it down the hole, get it closer to the green, and get it on +1. And then once you're on, you don't even need to make the putt. You just need to 2-putt half the time and 3-putt half the time. And if you can accomplish each of those things, you can't outdo the math, right? You can't hide from it. The math is there. It will work. Now, one of the things that we do in my Academy program is we have standardized tests that measure your ability in each of these little sub-skills. And we can isolate it. Now, yes, we can track these when we go out and play and take a look at our stats along the way, or we can simply do our benchmarking test for each of these little subcategories, and you can isolate it. How good are you off the tee hitting fairways? How good are you scrambling around the greens? How good is your lag putting? Is your lag putting affecting your skill with your short putts? Whatever it is. And when you can isolate that skill, you can see, okay, in theory, I have the skill to break 100. It's there. My numbers, I did the test, I passed. Then it's, can you apply it when you actually go out and play? Now, the reason that we do this is there's this belief that if we're out on the course and we're just feeling good, we're going to rise to the level of the occasion. We're going to hit the best shot possible when the pressure's on, when it really matters. And I hate to say it, but it doesn't necessarily work this way. It comes back to your level of training, your level of confidence. Have you put in the work? Is this something that you've proven that you can do again and again? So that when the situation does arise and you do have that shot in front of you, it's not having to rise to the level of the occasion, it's defaulting back to your training. And then it becomes automatic and it becomes a lot easier because you know not only you can do it, but you've done it many times. So we take a look, what is your bottleneck? What is the score you're trying to reach? Where is your bottleneck? Isolate that bottleneck, develop the skill that you need to break through to reach that score, and then apply it on the course and know that you have the skills to do it. And when it comes to breaking 100, the bottlenecks you're going to run into are penalty shots with your full swing, keeping the ball in play, keeping it out of trouble. It's being able to get the ball on the green +1 over regulation, and it's being able to 3-putt half the time and 2-putt half the time. But I promise you this, if you can meet those requirements, you will break 100.